What's up guys, Eric here from Techisode TV, and here are 20 plus new features on the Galaxy S10. So I had some hands-on time with the Galaxy S10 at Galaxy Unpacked, and one of the first things I noticed was that there is no more time limit for UHD or UHD at 60 frame per second videos. Now previously on like the Galaxy Note 9 or even the S9 Plus, there were time limits. There was a 10-minute limit for 4K footage and a 5-minute limit for 4K at 60 frames per second. Now obviously I wasn't able to actually film for 10 plus minutes at the event, so when I get my Galaxy S10 I will film a 4K 60 frame per second video for longer than 10 minutes just to verify that the timer is actually gone and Samsung didn't just remove the timer at the bottom of the video for some reason. So if that's the case, if there actually is still a time limit, I'll just pin a comment down below letting you guys know that yes, there is still a time limit, but for some reason Samsung decided just to get rid of the timer at the bottom. Another new feature is that Adobe Rush is going to support Samsung DeX. Now Adobe Rush is a mobile editing software. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit all of my videos on my computer. Premiere Rush is a way to do it on a mobile device and then quickly transfer it to a computer and do some more editing there. So it's not quite as full featured as like Premiere Pro, which is what I use to edit all these videos, but it'll still have a good amount of editing features. So for those of you who don't know what DeX is, it's Samsung's desktop experience. So if you plug a Samsung phone into a computer monitor, then what you'll get is a desktop type experience. So you'll have a start menu, you'll have a desktop where you can actually put application shortcuts and folders and things like that. You do have a file browser and you can open up multiple file browsers at the same time and just drag and drop files from one to the other. So it's basically like a pretty robust desktop experience. Now it's not going to be as robust as like Windows or Mac OS or anything like that, but for a smartphone it's pretty robust. It's a pretty legitimate desktop experience, and even like your web browser is like a desktop style web browser. So the fact that Adobe Rush supports DeX now is really big because that's going to allow you to get desktop style editing from a phone, which is really impressive. And I think this is going to be big for a lot of content creators like myself, where sometimes you're out and you're filming and stuff like that, you just want to have your phone to film, so you could use your Galaxy S10, you can do all of your editing on the S10, you can plug it into a computer, you can finish all of your editing, which is really, really impressive. The Galaxy S10 is also the first smartphone to have Wi-Fi 6. Now Wi-Fi 6 will increase your Wi-Fi transfer speeds by up to 40% for peak speeds, and it'll also increase your average Wi-Fi transfer speeds by 4 times in congested areas. Now, there's a lot that goes behind this new Wi-Fi 6 technology. It's very different than the previous versions of Wi-Fi, which is why it's so significant. And if you want to see a much more in-depth video kind of explaining all of that, then I'd go check out a video by Linus Tech Tips. They've got a Tech Quickie video that kind of explains it really well. And Netgear also has a video out that explains it in pretty simple terms. It's actually only like 1.5 minutes long, something like that. So if you guys want a better description of why Wi-Fi 6 is important and why it's cool, then you can check out those videos. I have those linked down in the description. The Galaxy S10 emits 42% less blue light, which is actually really important. So if you look at screens that emit a lot of blue light, there's been studies done that show that it's going to degrade your eyes, so your eyesight's just going to get worse and worse over time. So the fact that they reduced it by 42% is pretty impressive, and that's without a filter. It's 42% before you apply a blue light filter, which is pretty cool. So the battery life on the Galaxy S10 also gets a considerable improvement. Samsung says it's going to be improved by about 25%. So the Galaxy S9 Plus had a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. The Galaxy S10 Plus gets a 4,100 milliamp hour battery. Speaking of battery life, Samsung has incorporated an app optimization algorithm. So what that's going to do is it's going to look at the apps that you use most often during certain periods of the day, and it's actually going to preload those apps during those times of the day and those times of the week. On the flip side, the apps that you just don't use at all during other parts of the day, like so let's say there's an app that you use in the morning all the time, but you never use it in the afternoon. When the afternoon comes, the Galaxy S10 is going to close that application to help save some battery life, and then the next morning, about the time that you would start using it, it would reload that application. So from your perspective, you would think the app was loaded the whole time for like the whole day and the next day around, but it wasn't. It was actually closed most of the time and only opened when you needed it. Now, this sounds like a really awesome feature, both for performance improvement and battery saving, but I'll have to wait to get the device in hand to see how well it actually works. The Galaxy S10 will also be the first smartphone to have an HDR10 Plus screen. So simply put, all that really means is that the Galaxy S10 will have the most color accurate display of any smartphone on the market. Now, I did see this in person. When you're looking at the screen, it was almost like you were looking through a window instead of looking at a screen, because the colors just look so true to life. So when you looked at it, it was almost like you felt like you could kind of reach into the screen and kind of reach in and try to touch the stuff, because it really did look very similar to just looking out of a window, which is really, really cool. Not only is the Galaxy S10 the first smartphone with an HDR10 Plus screen, but it's also the first smartphone that can record in HDR10 Plus, which is great because I'm pretty sure the only place that you can get HDR10 Plus footage is on some Amazon Prime videos. I'm not even sure if YouTube supports HDR10 Plus quite yet. Sticking with camera features for a little bit, there's a new mode called Super Steady Mode. And what this is it's like image stabilization turned up to 11. And the way Samsung achieved this is that they improved the mechanical components in the optical image stabilization system, and that allowed them to make even more improvements on the software side as well. So what you end up with are these ridiculously smooth videos. And this video here is an example of that. So you can see there's these two guys on bikes, and they both have Galaxy S10s mounted to their helmets, and they're just going up and down all over the place, and the camera is so unbelievably steady. Even going downstairs, it's just so ridiculously steady. It's really, really impressive stuff. Now, obviously, this is a demo video. I haven't been able to really try this out myself. So when I do get the Galaxy S10 in hand, this is definitely something I'm going to test out to see how smooth it really is. Something else you should know up front about this Super Steady Mode is that it only supports 1080p. So in case you were thinking it would be some awesome 4K HDR10 Plus Super Steady Mode, no, sorry, it's only in 1080p. However, as you can see from the footage, the 1080p footage is really good. I mean, the colors are so nice in that footage, so it's not too bad. Something else I noticed with my hands-on time with the S10 is that in the native video application, if you go to expand the screen to the top and bottom of the phone so that the cutout is kind of seen in the middle of the screen, you can actually stop part way and not show the camera cutout at all. So you'll get more screen real estate for your video, but you're not going to have anything cut out by the cameras. So this is a great feature, and I hope we see something like this in the YouTube application. I wasn't actually able to test YouTube to see if that would work, but hopefully we see something similar where we can punch in a little bit so we can get more screen real estate without having to punch in all the way and then get the camera cutouts showing on the video. The Galaxy S10 now supports reverse wireless charging. Samsung calls this PowerShare. And what this does is it allows you to put a wireless charging device on the back of your Galaxy S10 and wirelessly charge that device. Now, it's only about 4.5 or 5 watts, somewhere in that range, which is kind of standard wireless charging speeds. But as far as I can tell, the Galaxy Watch, the Galaxy Buds, and any of Samsung's other smartwatches only use that standard speed wireless charging anyway. So when it comes to accessories, you wouldn't have any benefit to having a 7.5 watt or even like a 12 watt power sharing option on the Galaxy S10. And this is something that I'm actually really excited for, because particularly with my Galaxy Watch, like if I go on vacation that's longer than 3-4 days, something like that, then I'll bring the charger for my Galaxy Watch. But if I have a Galaxy S10 that has PowerShare, then I can just bring my phone, plug my phone in at night, and then drop my Galaxy Watch on the back of my phone, and I'll be charging both my phone and the watch overnight. So it's just one less charger that I need to bring, which is pretty slick. And while we're talking about wireless charging, the Galaxy S10 now supports Wireless Charge 2.0, which allows the Galaxy S10 to charge 36% faster than a Galaxy S9. Now, the charge rate is 36% faster, but your total charge time from 0 to 100 is only going to be about 26% faster. Now, I say only 26% is a big jump, but I just wanted to make that clear that 36% is just the charge rate. That's how fast it's charging. But since the S10 has a larger battery, it's obviously going to take longer to charge the bigger battery. So your savings is really about 25-26% in total charge time. The Galaxy S10 now has 3 cameras on the back. So you have your standard angle, you have your zoom lens, and you now have an ultra-wide camera. The ultra-wide camera is 16 megapixels. It has an f2.2 aperture, and it has a 123-degree field of view. Now, this does not have optical image stabilization, And from what I've heard, it also doesn't have any autofocus at all, but I'm assuming this is one of those infinity focus type lenses. So it's going to try to keep everything in focus at the same time. So hopefully you'll still be able to record videos with it and have the videos come out decent as long as nothing is super close to the camera. Something else to know is that the S10e only has 2 cameras on the back, and those are the standard and ultra wide cameras. So the S10e does not have the 2x zoom camera. While we're talking about cameras, let's talk about the front cameras. So Samsung has upgraded the 8 megapixel camera that was on the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus to a 10 megapixel camera. Now, obviously this is going to get you a bit sharper photos, which is great, but the big improvement by moving from 8 to 10 megapixels is that your front camera can now record in 4K, which is great for people who like to vlog with their smartphones. Exclusive to the S10 Plus is an 8 megapixel depth sensing camera, and that is not a camera that you can actually take pictures with. That is just there to sense depth for better bokeh photos, or those portrait photos. So where your face is in focus and then the background is totally blown out, not in focus at all. That blown out background, that's called bokeh. So that 8 megapixel sensor is just for getting those types of effects. Now this is also going to help with the AR emojis. Now, I didn't get a chance to try those out at the event. We'll see if they're any better. The actual animations though, like what the faces look like, I think is a big improvement. The characters, I think, just look a lot better. And I'll have to, when I get the phone, I'll have to do like a side-by-side to show you guys the difference between what the characters look like. I think Samsung's moving in the right direction when it comes to AR emojis. And speaking of AR emojis, there's now a new mode called Mini Motion. And what this does is it allows you to include hand motions and arm gestures and arm movements in general along with your AR emojis. So previously it was just face movements, so raising your eyebrows, blinking, smiling, that kind of stuff. And if you like leaned forward and backward, like your whole character's like body would just kind of pivot in a weird way. I'm not sure why they did it that way, but there was no like arm motions that you could do or anything like that. It was just head motions. So now if you put it into mini motion mode, then you'll also be able to get like arm gestures and stuff like that, but you won't be able to get hand gestures. So you won't be able to do like a thumbs up. You could probably wave because an open hand is probably like the default position of the hand, but you won't be able to do like a thumbs up or anything like that. This next feature is something I'm sure all of you already knew about. It is the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that's built into the screen. So all you have to do is touch towards the bottom of the screen and it will unlock your phone using ultrasonic waves. So it's basically like sound waves that you can't hear. It's going to bounce those waves off your finger, which then go back to a sensor, and it uses that to map your fingerprint, which is pretty cool. Now this is the first smartphone to have this ultrasonic technology in it. All previous phones that had a fingerprint sensor in the screen were optical sensors. So you had to shine a really bright light from the screen onto the finger, and then it would basically take a picture of your fingerprint and map it that way. But apparently this didn't work so well in really bright conditions, or if your finger was wet or dirty or something like that, then it also wouldn't work too well in those situations either. But with this new ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that Samsung has, it should work a lot better in those bright light situations, or even if you have like a wet finger. And as far as security goes, this type of sensor can even sense blood flowing through your finger. So even if someone 3D printed your finger and stuck that on the sensor, it wouldn't work because there's no blood flow detected. So this is a lot more secure than most of the traditional fingerprint sensors we've had in the past. Something else you guys probably know about by now is that the Galaxy S10 has a top tier model that goes all the way to 1 terabyte of storage and 12 gigabytes of RAM. And on top of that, you can get a 512 micro SD card and throw that in there for a whopping 1.5 terabytes of internal storage, and obviously those 12 gigs of RAM, which is just ridiculous. And if you look at that and you think to yourself, who on earth would ever need 1 terabyte of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on a smartphone, then I've got a video coming up later when I get my Galaxy S10 to explain exactly who could take advantage of that and why it would be justifiable to have that much RAM on a smartphone. If you guys want to see that video, definitely subscribe and smack the notification bell so you can actually be notified when the video is uploaded. The Galaxy S10 also gets a brighter screen, so it's now up to 1200 nits, which is a measure of brightness, and DisplayMate says this is about 17% brighter than the Galaxy S9, so this is a decent improvement, and it's going to help in those situations when you're in direct sunlight, like when you're at the beach. Samsung has opened up their camera SDK, so what this means is that third-party applications can now use Samsung's native camera within the application. So if you're in Facebook, for example, and Facebook implements this, and you go to take a picture from within the Facebook app, instead of getting this kind of simplified camera that comes kind of in Facebook, you'll actually be able to use Samsung's native camera from Facebook. So you'll be able to go through all the different camera settings and set it up just like you would taking a picture if you were just in Samsung's native camera app. But then when you take the picture, it can take you right back into, like, say, Facebook, and you'll be able to post it directly, which is pretty neat. And speaking of apps being able to integrate the camera has also integrated a specific app right into it, and that is Instagram. So there's now an Instagram mode in the Galaxy S10 that'll allow you to snap a photo and then add tags to it and that kind of stuff, and then post direct to Instagram right from the camera app. Samsung has added a new mode for even better low light photography, and it's called Bright Night. So when the camera detects that it's a very, very dark photo or very dark setting, it's going to turn on this Bright Night mode, and it's going to make it much, much brighter than if you took a picture without that mode on. Now, this isn't something I was able to test out, so I'm not sure exactly how much of a difference it's going to make over, say, the Galaxy S9 Plus, but that's something that I can test out when I get the camera, and I'll let you guys know over on Twitter how they compare to each other. And if you're not already following me on Twitter, you can go ahead and look me up at Techisode TV, and I'll also have a link down in the description if you want to follow me there. Another feature that's in the camera is a composition assistant. Now what that does is if you aim your camera at something and the camera can figure out kind of what's in the scene, what you're looking at, whether it be people or cars or whatever it may be, it will have this little dot appear, and that dot, it's basically saying aim the camera at the dot. Now what that's going to do is it's going to line your shot up for a better looking photo. And then it will also tell you if your camera is tilted one way or another, so it'll help you kind of line up to get it perfectly horizontal and then line up for the best setup for a shot. Because sometimes if you take a photo and you have it kind of off to the left too much or off to the right too much, it really won't look that good. But if you get it centered just right for a particular scene, then it's going to look a lot better, and the camera's trying to help you figure out how to get the best shot. Now again, this is something else that I wasn't really able to test out, so once I've had the S10 for a while and I've been able to use this for a little bit, I'll be able to tell you guys how well it actually works. And again, if you want to see that kind of information quickly before I upload any videos and stuff like that, I post those sorts of things on my Twitter account, again at Techisode TV. So there is a 5G variant. I guess that's something some people might not already know. And that version is larger, it's got a larger battery, and it also adds a depth sensing camera on the back as well. So similar to the depth sensing camera that's on the front of the S10 Plus, it's also going to be on the back of the S10 5G variant. Now what this is going to do is it's going to allow for better bokeh for rear camera shots, but it also enables bokeh for videos. Now I'm a little skeptical on how well this is going to work, because even in still images, the bokeh just isn't always great. Like the edges of your ears or your hair or things like that tend to not, like they'll get blurred when they shouldn't be, or things like that. So I'm a little skeptical about how well that's going to work, but it is a new feature that could be pretty cool if it worked well. So let me know down in the comments below what your favorite Galaxy S10 feature is, and if you guys are pre-ordering it, which one are you guys getting? Are any of you guys actually getting the 1 terabyte version? Or are you guys typically just getting like the 128 gig version? Are any of you guys getting the S10e? Either way, let me know down in the comments below. And as always guys, don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share it if you loved it, and subscribe to see my upcoming Galaxy S10 Plus coverage. I did get the 1 terabyte model, and there's some specific videos I wanted to make with that particular device, so definitely hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of those notifications. That's it for this Techisode, guys. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next one.